I believe so. Let me actually look. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So we can just go into that and kick off the introductions there.
Perfect. I'm trying to think what the best way would be. I think, well, I'm going to begin with the kind of, when I go through the list I have here, so I'm going to just say your names and everybody can introduce yourselves, and then we'll introduce the Kimley Horn team at the end. Does that work? Okay, so you are the first, Hannah.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Oda. I'm a planning coordinator over at PAG. So yeah, thank you all for joining. I'm just going to make a quick note. If you do need to leave early for any reason or can't stay for the entirety of the meeting, please just let us know so we can make sure that we have quorum.
Thank you. Gallovale.
Yep. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nalo. I'm with the town of Sarita, and thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeanette.
Good afternoon. This is Jeanette Duren, Transportation Planning Director here at PAG. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm with Oro Valley. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works.
Thank you. So my system seems not to be working because every time someone talks, my list moves. So if I miss someone at the end, please let me know. Dustin.
Hey everyone, Dustin Fitzpatrick, PAG Environmental Planning Administrator.
Jennifer.
Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Hobart, and I'm with ADOT as a regional planner for the PAG region.
Right. Jonathan. Jonathan, if you're talking, we cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry. Jonathan Crow with Pima County DOT.
Oh, thank you. Lisa.
Hi, sorry. Lisa Schaefer, Town of Marana. I apologize if I'm home with a sick baby right now. So
Oh, thank you so much
baby.
for joining. I'm sorry that the baby is sick.
So I'm gonna stay muted as long as I can.
Thank you. Michael.
Mike Alexander with Oro Valley Transit Administrator for the Dial Ride.
Monica.
Hi, good afternoon. Monica Landgrave with the City of Tucson. Thank you.
Selena.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Falana Jeremiah, the Transit Planning Coordinator at PAG RTA.
Preston.
Good afternoon, everybody. Preston McLaughlin, Transportation Mobility Manager here with PAG RTA.
Shamara.
Hello, everybody. Shamara Smith with Suntran.
Sean.
Hi, it's Sean Gray, with General Manager with We Drive You, contracted by RTA.
Great. And then I have from the Kimley Horn team, Joe.
Hi, Joseph Kafari with Kimley Horn, Public Involvement Manager on this project.
Great. Brian.
Hey everybody, my name is Brian Cow. I'm a transportation planner with Kimley Horn.
And I'm Mariate Echeverri. I'm the project manager. And so today, well, I'm excited about this group. We have a great crowd today. So thank you so much for joining us. And I know that Hannah mentioned that if you need to leave, please let us know, but we will try to keep this as concise as we can, and hopefully we can have a great discussion. Hannah, do you have something else in your agenda, or can we begin the presentation?
Yeah, we'll go over to the second item, which is just our in-kind form. So I'll just go ahead and read this here real quick. So regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. So if you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know now. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG, RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. All right, I think we can go on to the next item.
All right.
And then, Marietta, you should get slide control so you can go through your presentation.
Fantastic. Yeah, I see it here. So thank you everybody for being here today. We have a couple of items that we would like to talk to you about. First, we're gonna do a brief summary on the public engagement efforts to date. We talked, I think the last time we met, we were in the middle of the first phase, but you didn't see kind of all the results. And then we'll dive into the kind of the planning work that we are doing right now, and we would like to discuss with you, you're gonna see once we go through the presentation, how we are kind of making some decisions, and we want to verify with you that the decisions we are making are something that makes sense for the region. And then we would like to also get your thoughts on our second phase of the public engagement, and then we'll have a discussion. So I'm going to move this. Joe?
Yeah, so thank you. So wanted to highlight the public engagement summary, and great to see everybody again. So this is a follow-up from that previous technical advisory committee meeting. Just a reminder, we did do our first round of public outreach from October 22nd through October 24th of last year. And so we teamed up with a local public relations firm here, the Gordley Group, to help us out on the outreach. So we were in attendance at a variety of pop-up events. So we hit the transit centers in the morning hours and then in the mid-afternoon hours, engaged with riders and asked them their travel preferences and behaviors. Those are more of the pop-up events themselves. We held 2 open house meetings, one in Vail and one in Picture Rocks, to solicit information from those attendees specific to those areas. And then we met with, we did some focus groups with the Sun Shuttle, Suntran drivers themselves. So we really wanted to hear the initial from the riders, and then we wanted to marry that and couple it up with the drivers and see where there was symbiosis or where there was a disconnect between the two. We then had presented to the Technical Advisory Committee, and after that met with the town of Oro Valley to talk about their ridership and transit program in Oro Valley. Engagement from that, there were 127 surveys, but numbers only tell one side of the story. And we learned a lot talking with the riders, just those interactions and just seeing what those behaviors were. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So there is a picture out at the Laos Transit Center in the morning, one of the pop-up events. So we offered some chips and snacks, some cookies, and some bananas, and really drew a crowd that way to the table where we were able to engage with them and talk. What we heard from them during these pop-ups, that they would like to extend or provide the weekend service, extend weekday service hours, and they would like more frequent service on the existing routes. So when we asked them, would you like expanded service or maintain and enhance the existing? We had a lot of people say that they wanted the existing enhanced as well. We heard a lot of stories of people traveling to do volunteer work. And then when they would get out of that volunteer shift, there wasn't a bus available, so they would have to rely on some other means of transportation. So looking at a lot of that nighttime extension hours going into the weekend is largely what we heard from the riders themselves. We asked them about microtransit, explained what that is, what it could look like, and overall 80% of them were in favor of some form of microtransit service. Next slide.
Thank you, Joe. So I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions regarding the first phase of the public engagement. Yes, Michael.
When you explain what microtransit is, from what I'm understanding, microtransit is getting you from wherever they're at to a bus stop.
Oh yeah, so microtransit is just to make it very simple, is similar to Uber and Lyft, but with public transportation. So it's an on-demand service that has kind of different models. You can be picked at your your origin and drop at your destination, or it can bring you to virtual stops, or it can bring you to a specific stop. So typically microtransit works with technology, so there is an app associated with it, and one of the characteristics of the service that is different from the regular on-demand service is that people can reserve their trips the same day, and they can get service within 1 hour, or in some cases within 20 minutes. It depends on how it's set up. So it's very similar to Uber and Lyft, but it's using just
So you're talking about same day transportation needs.
Yes.
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 And is I mean, I don't know if you've gone this far or not, but is RTA or PAG going to provide this app, or how does that going to work?
Well, we are getting into all those details. And right now, RTA is the contract out service, and I believe the idea is for the contractor to provide the app. So those are kind of details that need to be ironed once it is determined that microtransit is what works for the region or not.
Okay, on your little pop-up questionnaires, was any of that, including the drivers, was any of that in the Oro Valley area, or just the main meetings for the RTA next?
The pop-ups themselves took place at the three main transit centers and the University of Arizona.
Yeah.
So no drivers or riders in Oro Valley area were involved in that?
No, but we did meet with Amy Ramsey and the town of Oro Valley right in that window of period. There was that next week or so. There will be a second round of engagement, which we'll talk about later, and getting into those more targeted areas.
Yeah, and Michael, we talked about this when we had the conversation with you, and like what we were going to, that this we will go back to you and to Amy to discuss kind of the things that we were looking at, and one of the reasons we are hosting this committee today is to get your feedback on the things that we are thinking, because one of the things that we heard when we met with you, with both of you, was that to really make a change, it needed to be something very well done. So it is worth, because your direct ride service works very well. So we have that in mind, and we just want to, today we want to hear your feedback about the things that we are considering, and then we will go back to the public and go through all these things again. Any other questions? All right, so we have been doing a lot of planning work in the background. We did the existing conditions, and that was presented to the committee in October, and then with so existing conditions along with public engagement, we began drafting what we call the service opportunity zones, and Brian is going to talk about what we have done, how we have kind of make some decisions that we want to corroborate with you, and then we can have a discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Mariate. So coming up with these service opportunity zones, it really is built on top of the analysis we did for the existing conditions part of the study. So highlighting some of the maps, we looked at transit propensity, which is evaluating which communities have a greater need for transit and where existing transit serves. And what we kind of see is that Tucson has pretty good transit coverage, not too many communities that are not currently served by transit that has a high need for it. And so this led us to think that microtransit would be a better fit kind of on the periphery of the Tucson region where there is no existing transit, but we can serve those first last mile trips to transit. Next slide. And we also were looking at travel patterns in the entire region. This is a map showing just a high level of trip flows, but we also did analysis for individual communities as well to understand for each community, where are people going and is there transit that takes you there right now? And next slide. And so when we started to think about microtransit service, there are a lot of variables that we need to consider, and they all affect each other and affect the program success. And so all of these things that were showing up on the screen right now are things that were taken into consideration in our analysis. Next slide.
Sorry, Brian, I think Davida has.
No, I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. It was an accident.
Okay.
Cool. So we started putting, just noting down some regions that we think microtransit could be a good fit and to do more analysis on. But we recognize that the travel patterns and needs are super different across the region. And so we have two categories that we're thinking of. So the group one is our weekday service category, where we see that it is more rural, lower density, lower trip activity, and a lower need for transit. And our extended service group is more densely populated, more trip activity, and has a greater need for transit. And so for these two groups, we are adjusting the service parameters. So they're a little different. The weekday service, it's in a name, would only have microtransit service on weekdays, while our extended service, we're thinking about having service on Saturdays and Sundays as well. Next
And
slide.
I want to go back to kind of bring back what we heard during the first phase of the public engagement, that we heard from the riders and the public, that having weekend hours and having later hours and kind of having a little bit more coverage was very important. So that's reflected on this as well.
Yes. And so here is the map of all the zones that we are looking into for microtransit. The orange zones are weekday service and the blue zones are expanded service with more a higher service quality. And so you'll notice that all the existing general public dollar ride zones are taken into consideration. Our 4 zones here: Ajo, Sahuarita Green Valley, Marana Everett Valley, and Oro Valley. And then we drew up a couple others, thinking about replacing poorly performing fixed routes with microtransit. So that's going to be our Rita Ranch Savano and our Tortolita zones. And then our other zones here are transit expansion. So bringing public transit into places where we have very little existing fixed route transit. Next slide. And so once we have the zones, we start thinking about the different parameters, how to customize the service. And what we're showing here on the screen is all the different options that are possible. But if we go to the next page, next slide. Yes. Here are what we think works best for Tucson's conditions. So between the 2 groups, the travel rules are the same. It's anywhere to anywhere. So we are not restricting pickup and drop-offs to certain locations. We also did identify a couple of points of interest and transfer points that may be outside of these zones, but we see a lot of trip flows going to these places. And so that naturally makes sense to also provide service to those places to fulfill that demand. For our booking model, we are envisioning a purely on-demand service. So all trips would be booked same day through an app, and it'll assign you to a driver and get picked up within an hour. This is where there is a little bit of difference between the 2 groups. So our weekday service, because it's less densely populated, the average wait time is expected to be a little bit higher, 20 to 25 minutes, but no greater than an hour. Our extended zones, because we have a higher population density, we think we could get to a lower average wait time of about 10 to 15 minutes. For our bus stop model, we are envisioning curb to curb everywhere in the zone. So that means that the vehicle is going to pick you up and drop you off at the closest point feasible. And passengers aren't expected to walk a huge distance because we know how hot it gets in Tucson. So this is the most convenient option for our riders. For the fleet, we are envisioning minivans. We don't often see that. The vehicle capacity is a huge constraint. So minivans are adequate in most scenarios. We do want to make sure a couple of these are wheelchair accessible just to serve those trips as well. And then the service hours is the biggest difference. The weekday zones will only have service on weekdays, and the extended zones will have service on weekends as well. Next slide.
Yeah, I wanted to add here, Ryan, when you say that the trips need to be reserved through an app, there is also going to be the option to call, and many people are already used to that, and so if they feel more comfortable doing that, they can continue doing it. Yes, Michael.
The weekend service, is that going to be open to all or just ADA?
It'd be open to all.
In this scheme, again, we are just in the planning.
Correct. Yeah, but I was just making sure if that was, because we currently do ADA service on weekends, but if it's open to all, then it's different.
Yeah, and we need to. I mean, we are going through these simulations, and then we will begin looking at the cost, and then we will be able to see what, where everything falls and what is feasible and what is not feasible. All right. Any other questions here? All right.
Okay, yeah. So once we have the zones and the parameters defined, we could start estimating ridership demand. So the data at the fundamental level is the population and the employment within the zone, so the number of people or jobs. And then we apply a capture rate to that number in order to see how many of those people would likely take microtransit. And this capture rate is variable. It's not the same across the zones. We do take it into account demographic factors such as income or vehicle ownership or percentage of population that are seniors. These indicators that might push the capture rate higher or lower. And then for some of the zones where we're thinking about replacing fixed routes, we also add that ridership on top. And if we go to the next slide, we will see the results of that analysis. A couple of things I want to highlight on this slide. So we did consider phasing, which like if we were to implement these, what order would they come in? And from what we heard from the public outreach is that there is a greater desire to make existing transit better rather than to expand the service. So all of our existing general public dollar ride zones are marked as short-term or immediate. And then out of these, our best performing two general public dollar ride zones, Ajo and Oro Valley, we're thinking can be a pilot program. We're ready to implement microtransit right away.
Yeah, that's probably not a possibility because my council's never, this hasn't gone to council. And I have not received any indication that they want to implement microtransit. I keep mentioning this. They are very happy with the service. And if any of you guys are familiar with our very vocal Oro Valleyans, any change is not perceived as a good change. So to see immediate on here, to the only one that's pretty fixed in our service and how we provide it, I don't know if that's a good thing. In fact, I can't support an immediate. That would have to go through several hoops.
And yeah, that's exactly what we want to hear from all of you. You know, I mean, this is we are in the planning stage, and we are bringing this to all of you to hear what could work or what you think would not work. And I remember you said that when we met in October, that council is very happy with the service, but if there was kind of an improvement that we could show, that could go before council. So I think, I mean, I don't know, Hannah, what you think, if
Well, so far you haven't even
continue including.
I haven't even seen, I can't even see what the improvement, what you're swapping for. You're calling microtransit. I haven't seen your evaluation of our service. And then you want to put this service in place of, it sounds like, what we're operating now. And I can't have a report going out that says that when I don't see any documentation as how this works, why you guys are saying you're going to carry an average of 290. Are you assuming that this service is going to consume our other service? What's the cost? What's the parameters? You're talking about vans and one person per rider when we're averaging 2 to 3 persons per rider. So I'm worried that from an Oro Valley standpoint, not the rest of it, the other terms look really good. 2 to 4, 6 years is probably an answer. But to have a document go out to the public that says this is immediately coming when our public involvement's been real small causes me some angst.
Well, right now, nothing is going to the public. We are showing this to you to get your feedback. And so what you see here is we look at the zones that are being provided. We made some adjustments, and we are doing the simulations. So this, what you see here is just simulations. And the goal of today, as I mentioned at the beginning, is to get your feedback to determine if we are going in the right direction or not. What I hear from you is that you would not like Oro Valley to be considered in the immediate term. Is medium term better? What do you think would be ideal for Oro Valley to look at this? And I'm sure that this all goes
At a minimum, it's got to be short term, if not longer.
Okay. Yeah, and as I was saying before, I think Hannah and Jeanette, you need to tell us kind of in the political realm how you want to handle this, because we are just going through the planning process. So I understand that there are political ramifications, and we want to be sensitive to those.
Sure, and Mariachi, I can speak to that. Yeah, and we totally hear your concerns, Amy, as we have all along. The whole purpose of having this working group is to kind of talk through some of these details and talk through the scenarios that Brian and Mariachi have come up with based on the information that we've provided them. So we've given them many different sources of data, our public feedback, and having met with some of you, most of you individually in small groups. And the purpose of that was to have somewhere to start to look into scenarios and what could be. At this point, we're not making any recommendations about changes to any specific service that, you know, we're going to fund it with this funding. You know, we're not really there yet. We're just looking at what if scenarios. And based on the data and information that we have right now, the whole purpose, like I said, of this working group is to get the feedback from you guys as the experts, as those in the industry representing our jurisdictions that, you know, have that valuable insight as to how these programs really work. And then the next steps, of course, would be to take this through our committees here at PAG, meet with the folks that make these decisions, and then when decisions about funding, how things are going to be funded, where the money is going to come from, if we decide to implement any of the recommendations that come out of this plan, you know, those decisions will be made by the powers that be. I mean, certainly we wouldn't take this to our regional council without, you know, giving you substantial time to talk it over with the powers that be at Oro Valley. And of course, we can be available for any of those conversations as well. So if we need to sit down with, you know, your leadership and kind of walk them through the findings of our study and any recommendations that come out of it, we're happy to do that. Obviously, later in the process when we have, you know, more of the outcomes to share. So that's kind of where we are in the process, and, you know, letting our consultant team kind of use their skills and knowledge to analyze what we have done here in Tucson and what we can do potentially in the future. We don't know what the next year or two holds in terms of funding, where the money is going to come from, how much things are going to cost. So when we do know those questions, or we do know those answers, we know we're going to have a funding stream. We'll be ready to make decisions because we'll have done this analysis. So whether or not that will be specific changes, I mean, those decisions will be made once the analysis is ready for them to use. So hopefully that answers your questions. Of course, we can continue to have conversations with you throughout the whole process.
So when it's saying immediate, that's probably a year out at the earliest, which is going to get us past the RTA next vote and so on. Plus everything that you just said.
Yeah, so I mean, this is for the purposes of the simulation. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brian or Mariate, but you know, they made these phasing statements just for the purposes of running the simulation. So we're going to make these assumptions, and then run them through the simulation and see what the result will show. And if that's something that we can, first of all, understand, but second of all, support or recommend moving forward, then the consultant team will adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and definitely I mean, based on the feedback we are receiving today, we'll move Oro Valley out of the immediate term and perhaps even expand the immediate to a little bit kind of a longer period, just to give time to all the budget cycles and things that need to happen.
And
Jonathan?
having that verbiage on there, it makes it seem like Oro Valley is agreeing to do this already. So that's like, okay, wait.
But this is just a planning effort, and we are just getting your
Right.
feedback.
Right.
In this, what you see here is just a simulation of what will be. I don't think that anyone has agreed to anything so far. Jonathan, have your hand up.
Hi, thanks. Looks like my question is for Brian. A few minutes ago, you mentioned that either the recommendations or the public had indicated a preference for additions or modifications to the existing transit network, as opposed to what I think you were saying was expansions into areas that are not currently covered by transit. Could you speak to that a little bit more, please?
Yeah, so that comes in for our phasing assumption here. So all of the ones that we're recommending to happen a little sooner are just our existing dial ride zones, while the medium and long-term zones are those that don't have existing service and will be considered a transit expansion.
So can you explain what the basis is for making that decision? Do you have some data from the public, or is it the preference of the team or RTA to choose to prioritize modifications to the existing network or in additions to the existing transit system, as opposed to just providing new microtransit in an area that has no transit whatsoever, that might be beneficial to that community to have transit options within their community? So can you explain the decision behind the information that you've listed?
And I can get that, Brian, if you want.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we are thinking on the possibility, kind of the success possibilities. So having service in these areas will, it will make it more successful. And also looking, and we have not looked at the financial implications yet, but adding additional service has financial implications. So we are looking first at how to keep the cost neutral. Even when we are not looking at those numbers right now, we know that if we kind of play with the numbers on the existing service and replace it with something that is similar in cost, we may be able to keep the cost neutral there. While everything that is expansion will require additional funding. And so it will be necessary to have time in between for RTA and the PAG to find how to fund these services.
Okay. I don't quite follow you, but maybe we can have this conversation offline with PAG staff, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Brian, do you have anything else here regarding the ridership simulation?
Just a few more things to highlight. So as you can see, we have a low, medium, and high ridership estimate. And you can see the range is a little wide. because it's really hard to pinpoint where exactly ridership would be. But we do expect most services to be in the medium rate, closer to the medium figure on the slide. And we do know that we're talking about maybe bringing fares back, and we do expect ridership to go down once this becomes a service that you'd have to pay for. I think that's all from me on this slide. Do we have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Cool. All right. I can go on to the next slide. So from here, I just want to give you guys like a sneak peek of the analysis that will happen once we kind of finalize on the zone boundaries and the service parameters. We'll start running with a pretty nifty simulation that that'll get us a lot more answers about what is required for this to happen for the service to go in. So next slide. And so the inputs into the simulation from here on is going to be that service zone, the road network underneath it, the parameters, the ridership estimates, and the available fleet vehicles that are able to run the service. And then next slide. The outputs are then going to be the vehicle requirements. So how many vehicles do you need running around for any given day? The average wait times that are actually experienced by the riders, the driver hour requirements, so driver shifts, utilization, which is the number of trips per hour that you can serve, the shared ride duration, so kind of what percentage of rides are shared with like more than one person on a vehicle at a time, and the estimated cost, the operating costs of running the service. Next slide. So the final output is going to look like a table with all these details on it and some of these metrics that we're looking at. And these numbers are just an example, just to kind of give like an idea of what is to come. We go to the next slide. Here are the key performance indicators that is going to help inform our decisions about microtransit. So the table on the left, these are showing some the indicators that our simulation is going to be able to provide an answer to. The average wait time, which is a design parameter, and we're seeing if we actually do meet that goal. The utilization, we generally want more than 2 riders per hour. We've seen success cases where we were hitting like 3 or 4 riders per hour. But in general, 2 is a good target to start. We want 20% of the rides or greater to be shared, and the operating cost per ride to be under $25. And as part of this project, we will also be doing an estimate of the greenhouse gas savings and the VMT reduction, but we don't have a target here yet. We'll be looking to PAG to help us create that target. And then on the right are some of the other KPIs that is good to track for a microtransit service after implementation, but we won't be able to simulate. But yeah, this is kind of all the data that we will get out of our simulation that will help us drive our decision-making process. Are there any questions on this part?
Yes, Michael.
So to get that cost per ride, you've definitely got a small zone. So the riders that are going from zone to zone are swapping providers or swapping vehicles, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for when we designed all of these zones, we made sure that all of them would have a fixed route connection within them, so somewhere that they could transfer onto a regular bus. Where the cost per ride comes in is this is only for our microtransit service. And so smaller zones that are denser, you'll see that the vehicles don't have to travel as far and you can pick up more people. And so that would have a lower cost per ride. Whereas the lessly dense populated zones would probably have a higher cost per ride. And so this is just one of the things that we're looking at when we are deciding on where to implement microtransit.
So what you're going to do, if I'm thinking of this right, is you're going to try and cut down the fixed routes to incorporate more of this same day service to get riders to more of the major bus stops.
Not in all zones. So certain zones, such as Rita Ranch, and over in Tortolita, we are thinking of a complete replacement of the fixed route service with microtransit. But in most zones, we are not touching the existing fixed route transit service. Microtransit in those places are more intended to serve as that first last mile connection to those services.
And Michael, I wanted to mention that the targets you see here are typical targets. Once we go through the simulations, we will be able to identify what the targets are going to be for the Tucson region. So these numbers are going to change. We just wanted to give you an idea of what typically happens with this type of service. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Joe.
Sorry about that. Just trying to come off mute. I'm used to Teams, not Zoom. All right. So this next round of public engagement will be upcoming here in just about a month, March 18th through the 21st. Again, working with Gordley Group and PAG to have a variety of staff in attendance at all of these events. So we really want to target a lot of different regional areas and then do a lot more kind of one-on-one meetings with focus groups. So looking at going down into Green Valley, Sahuarita area, attending the Heirloom Farmers Market that's down there. Again, doing some transit center pop-ups at Tohono, Roy Laos, and Ronstadt, and then doing additional pop-up events where we know that service is currently going to. So the Arizona Pavilions in the Marana area, going to Houghton Town Center, and then the Picture Rocks downtown area. There's like a food truck rally and a whole bunch of stuff. It's a pretty well attended event out there. So doing a lot more targeted area approaches this time around, and then getting very focused with different demographic groups. So working out, we recently just met with the PAG Social Services Group and got a lot of great feedback from them. Looking to get out to Ajo and talk with the Western Pima County Coalition that is out there. We did a presentation to them and they had a lot of great feedback. So this would be a part 2 with them. Talking to Vail Chamber and the school districts, the Council on Aging, and then getting with Oro Valley as well. Jonathan, I'm going to come. Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Thanks, Joe. I know you earlier in the presentation today, you gave kind of a summary of public involvement activities to date, but I didn't see anything written. I'm wondering, do you guys have anything written in terms of any summaries of that data or charts or things that kind of give us a little bit more information about what was asked and what kind of information you received?
We do. We have a public engagement summary report that has been developed. We'll just get permission from PAG to be able to share that out. These are all working papers currently, so we'll get with them, but we could send it out to the advisory committee in a separate email.
Thanks.
All right. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so I wanted to stop here for a sec, Joe, to see if the group, I mean, this is what we are thinking to do coming up in March. And we wanted to check with the group if there are other events, other groups, or a specific group that you would like us to target. For focus groups, we can do it outside of the March 18, 21st. And that's kind of our target, but we will, and we have a little bit of flexibility for meetings that are virtual. But if they are in person, we would like them. We would try to concentrate them on those days. And we will also like to meet with this committee again in March, just to talk further into the planning process and show you the results of the simulation, the simulations, and then kind of continue the conversations.
And we're totally happy to engage with anybody. So those focus groups were just what's been identified. But if you have a certain group that you work with regularly in your jurisdiction, or a group of riders who ride every single day and you would want us to talk with them, please let us know. That's really the information that we want to focus on for this second round of engagement.
Jeanette?
Yeah, thanks for making that point, Joseph. And they can also be, just a phone call with someone. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting, but if there's an individual or maybe a neighborhood association or anyone that you guys interact with on a regular basis. I know our RTA Transit folks do have a few people that are very engaged that, we can reach out to individuals or smaller groups or even your staff. We also have our consultants. So Mariate will be here in March. And so presentations will also be given to the TPC of some of the stuff that we've already talked about here in this group. So March will be a busy month with getting the word out and getting more feedback. So anything you guys can help to guide the right people towards us, we really do appreciate that at this point.
And following up on that, Amy and Michael, we have a draft email ready to go to you all, kind of talking about a focus group. So if you do have those riders or potential decision makers, or however you want us to approach that, to do an Ore Valley focus group, we would love to get the wheels spinning on that, so to speak, and get that locked in, potentially for that March timeframe while Mariate is here. All right, any other questions on this slide? All right.
Thank you, Jill. So I just wanted to show you the timeline again. So we are doing a lot of work right now here with the service models and the service planning, and we are planning on coming back to you in March. And I believe Hannah and Janet also want you guys to be involved in April, and the idea is to have all of this finished by May. So we are more or less here, and yeah, working a lot of different things at the same time to be able to be ready for May. And that's all we have today. Are there any other questions, thoughts? If you think of anything regarding the public engagement, we are actively kind of securing venues and getting all the focus groups set up, etc. So if you have any ideas, please let us know. Let Hannah or Janet know. We'll be happy to engage in many different ways, people from your communities.
All right. I don't see any hands up or anything from anyone else. So yeah, if there's nothing else, thank you so much, Mariate, Brian and Joe. Thank you, everyone who attended today. I think we can go to our adjournment slide if there's nothing else. But yeah, this meeting was recorded. The presentation will be posted online. So I'll follow up with those links, and then we'll follow up with additional folks as needed. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out if you think of anything or want to meet or have any additional comments. So thank you all very much for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Mariate.
Thank you all.